So a major habitat type, what scientists like me call the biome, that is quite vulnerable to development pressures are grasslands. And in the United States, the whole central portion of this country was one vast prairie. There was tall grass prairie, there was short grass prairie. It in fact was quite an obstacle to settlers trying to move west. And that's the way it was until John Deere invented the plow. And the roots of the prairie grasses go down like 10 feet. And over the tens of thousands of years and more that those grasslands were developing, they were accumulating all kinds of nutrients in the soil. So the black prairie soils made accessible by the sod-busting plow turned out to be a great boon for American agriculture. And it hasn't been treated very well. An awful lot of that soil is wasted, it goes down the rivers. Farmers now are waking up to that. So not too many years ago, at the end of August, blistering hot, I go to Peoria, Illinois, and my taxi in from the airport turns out to be a third-generation farmer making a little extra change. And he volunteers that he and everybody in the region are now doing no-till agriculture. And I was thinking, wow, that's amazing. Central Illinois, that is not my image of Central Illinois. Separately, in that same trip, I learned that there had been so much soil erosion over time that the local government found it worth its while to dredge the topsoil back out of the river for $16 million and sell it back to the farmers. If that isn't a story of a trend from unsustainable use of a natural ecosystem to a much more prudent and sustainable use, I'm not sure I can give you a better example. So the grasslands of the world are vulnerable for agriculture if there's enough rain, but they're also very attractive to the cattle raising focus that is such a big part of humanity. And we're really funny as an animal. We're mammals, right? And that means that you're raised by suckling on your mother's mammary glands. That's why they're called mammals, right? And we're such mammals, we've domesticated a whole bunch of others so we can drink their milk too. And we also like to eat beef and other kinds of things like lamb, etc. So this tension between the use of grasslands for its natural biodiversity and its ability to supply a cattle industry is a really big one. And what we're seeing in Africa with this incredible I call them animal cracker animals, this incredible fauna that lives in the African savannas, is that cattle are encroaching everywhere. And there's essentially only about 30% of natural savanna left in Africa. And that's where all the remaining lions are, and cheetahs and other amazing animals. And that's why it's so important to think about how to use the African landscape in ways that can support the increasing population and at the same time maintain this incredible biodiversity that Africa is legendary for. And it's literally anywhere in the world. Mongolia, Australia, grasslands, even pretty dry ones, are always being hammered by raising livestock of one sort or another. In the end, we have to also recognize that these are very important places for a subset of global biodiversity that only lives in grasslands. We need to figure out ways in which you might do some cattle raising without having a conflict. There are a bunch of efforts going on right now to help Maasai actually protect their cattle at night and not lose them to lions. And so it's an ongoing saga, I guess is what I'm saying here. And it could come down to a big crunch, and we could lose a lot of these amazing animals, or maybe they'll only survive in zoos or, seriously fenced parks. But it simply wouldn't be the same as it was when I first got to go in 1963, where these things would be just crossing the road, just wonderful giraffe crossing the road. It's all sort of getting sort of crunch time between immediate human uses and needs. And sometimes needs are true needs, sometimes they're perceived needs, and the rest of life on this planet. And one of those really major crunch places are the grasslands.